He talks about the what you call it now, the future of the workplace. Yeah, and he's an author, he's a speaker, he's a show host, breaking the coconut, and then entrepreneur and management consultant. He truly is. You know, I've talked about half-baked skills, but Charles truly is, and I'm happy to have him on the show. Hello, Charles. Good afternoon.
Hi, Choma. Good to have you.
Yes, can you speak up a little louder, please?
Okay, can you hear me properly now?
Yes, much better, much better.
Perfect.
Okay, so I'm going to go on a quick break at some point, just a very short one. Okay, so, well, let's just hear from you now, Charles. When I don't know, you heard what I was talking about before I introduced you, right? And the reality is on ground. Before you left for the UK, you were here in Nigeria, you trained Generation Z and prepared a lot of them for the workplace. What was your experience working with Gen Zs? Not that this show is dedicated to throwing them under the bus, but just talk to me about training the future workers of the workplace. Let's put it that way.
Okay, I heard your complaint. Firstly, I heard your complaint and about, but it's a general. I don't think it's just one person's problem. I think they complain about people looking for who to solve their problems and going on social media, going to LinkedIn, which is the right place to go to, and giving people responsibility. And at the end of the day, they're not doing it, being a problem. I think the challenge is that we're in a new era where our new currency is everything that makes things work here is knowing how to
sell yourself.
And everyone, yeah, sell yourself. Now, the challenge about this is that if you're not too careful, you could you need to continuously be in the game. What it means is that because there is nobody stops you from there is no school that tells you go to school every day. But the challenge is that in the era, you have to continuously be in the game, continuously groom your craft. And for most of the people you finally will give your work to do, not everybody is groomed in some common sense values that are not completely common, because the challenge is that it's not that most of them don't know what to do, is that most of the time there are no rules of engagement. So that's the more reason why we keep asking people. It's good to go to LinkedIn. It's good to brand yourself. It's good to be visible. But at the end of the day, there are some basics. That needs to be that you need to do firstly. Those basics will finally help you, because if you have those value systems of knowing that if Chioma gives me 500,000 naira to do a job, and that 500,000 is a big deal, I should be able to at least respect that and not completely think that 500,000 is chicken feed and anybody can pay that. Respect your client, listen to what the brief says and follow the brief. Because the challenge is that most of the times there is no brief, there's the assumption. Most of the times, most of these things they're so much assumption. Then when you go out of scope and you don't do the work, it becomes a challenge. So it's not a new thing, but whoever goes through that. Apologies, is the reality of the era. It's more time for us to dig deep and finally work with people that you have that have history. Firstly, I think that's where to start from. Yeah.
Okay, now let's look at the challenges in connecting people who are trying to get people to work for them and the people available to do the work. The skills people have are not the skills needed in the office. Let's put it that way. Why is that?
I didn't hear you properly.
The skills people have right now appear not to be what is needed at the moment. You know, there's that gap why is it not meeting? Why is there a skill gap? In fact, they call it a skills crisis. So there's a skills crisis in Nigeria. How so? Why so?
So it's a long conversation, but let's start with the one we are quite aware of. Firstly, how do you choose whoever works on your team? How do you go out to outsource for a client, or how do you give your work to someone? Someone wants to do a wedding, the very common one, and you go online, and finally you look at reviews, or you look at pictures. then you give the person the responsibility, and most of the time they don't do the job. Now, the first thing to say is that there might not be an ombudsman, a gatekeeper that punishes those that finally don't do what they're meant to do. But first thing first is that we're in an era where, to an extent, we are a bit fickle. Your yardstick for judging someone is pictures. Your yardstick for judging someone, it's not looking at asking them questions and maybe asking for real feedback and seeing how they work.
Okay.
You judge people in this era more with their pictures, with their shiny pictures and beautiful videos, and which has its own consequences compared to if you were going to go the normal traditional way or finally going to meet them in their office, seeing how they do their own work. So that has a toll on us because most of the challenge people complain about, they're not completely from the old way of how we used to do things. It's with the new kid on the block. It's with the new guy that is flashy. It's not with your old traditional guys that sometimes you have to pay more to look at how they go through the process. So the onus is on us to finally, in as much as we also teach branding and how people should be visible, there has to be
balance,
rules of engagement. Yeah.
Okay. What do you consider the most critical skills that young professionals should develop at this time?
To be very teachable. To also.
So the soft skills, huh?
As you hold yourself. Yeah.
The soft skills.
So I'll start from being teachable first, because there are the rules keeps changing. What used to be very important yesterday is no more what it is now. The basic soft skills we keep talking about is to have common sense. When I say common sense is relative. Your ability to understand, your ability to have emotional intelligence. Let's start from that. Maybe common sense might be very broad. Now, to understand very well that what does this client want? Because having skill is one, knowing how to work with a client is another one. Meaning you might be very skilled and you don't know how to communicate and work with clients. As basic as communication is and understanding the brief, that's half of the problem. Most times clients don't understand the brief. Most times smart guys don't even understand how to what it takes to do a work. So the basic soft skills that we would normally ask for is understanding what the real rules of engagement are and being able to put yourself in the next person's shoes and understand that, come on, my client is spending this and this is what is required of me. If you notice, I think for the past week, we've had so much feedback on social media. I've read the story of someone that didn't do well, that was given a role to manage a wedding and didn't do it well. Clients that give people work and finally don't do it well. But bottom line is still that if you look very well, there was so much of assumptions that the next person could do it well, and there were no written blueprints to get this done. Because clearly, if there were written blueprints, there'll be little problem. If there were some checklists for doing this work,
what the deliverables are. Okay.
Yeah, so my first deliverable could be for me as a client. I'm going to, normally the one that we are more important about is you pay 70%. But there's always the consequences of if you don't deliver the job. And there's that part of the conversation that is not said. We don't talk about that too. But there's if you don't deliver the job, what should be done? So with so much of newbies in the game, it's much responsibility for us to finally have a full rule of engagement that makes it easy for us. But I also think the conversation we're not also having with the smart ones, that the newbies, is our ability to help them understand that business is not completely that you're very skillful. Business has to do with the first rule of business. There are some values that you should have. Those values should represent you first. Those values are basic, that you understand that you're stealing. So you're a thief if I give you my money for you to do my work and you don't do it. It doesn't mean you need to carry a gun for you to be a thief first. It's stealing for you to do that, because that's like a smart way of taking my money. And if you have good values, you should have that more reason not to put your business or your brand in quotes, which is what it is, in that kind of spotlight. So there are some basic values that should be that we should be able to know you for before calling you the best in the game. So those are conversations we're not having, because we assume and think that what makes you great is know how to deliver the job. Delivering the job is like 1%, because at the end of the day, most organizations in this era might outsource the work to someone that knows how to do it. So why do you think most big firms would take the role of would outsource some jobs, and they have carpenters and most of those unskilled labor work, but they don't? They're the ones that are doing the main work. What they simply do is they tell the carpenter also, go do this. There's the role of more of impacting values. There's more to knowing how to do the job that we're missing, and that's what has put us where we are at the moment here.
Okay, let's open the phone lines at this point. The question is very simple. If you're a freelancer, yes, I would love to hear from you. What's it's like the gig economy. That's our conversation today. The gig economy and where we are with it. And there's a skills crisis in Nigeria, and we are trying to make sense of it all and understand where we are with it. And I was going to ask you, Charles, but first, let me just open the phone line, 0817-923-0002. You can also call 0817-923-0003. You heard the guest. I'd love to hear from you as well. When you think about freelancers or trying to hire someone to get a job done for you, whether it's your workplace or your personal project, what do you do to ensure that you're giving it to someone competent? And so that even if the person decides to throw a large sum of money on that particular skill, you're like, okay, I'm going to pay you this because that's actually what I want. How do you ensure that you're giving your work to someone competent to do? That is my question. Yes, 0817-923-0007. And then if you've been in the place where some of the people I know have been right now, where you've given someone a job to do and then the person didn't deliver, and you've already paid sometimes even up to 80%, and so refund is somehow thrown out the window, and then there's a lot of gaslighting sprinkled all over it. Share your experience with me. We're live on Facebook, by the way. We're also live on YouTube at Nigeria Info PH, and we're also on X at Nigeria Info PH as well. And yes, the WhatsApp number 0809 030 6416 0809 030 6416. That's the WhatsApp number. I would love to hear from you. I have career coach Charles Umeh joining me from the UK, but before he moved to the UK, he was quite well known here as someone who grooms Gen Zs in the workplace, and he has quite a resource, actually a book, when it comes to understanding how the workplace functions and balancing skill and all of that. So he has quite a wealth of knowledge there talking about this. And so when you think about the gig economy, where are we in ensuring that it helps to bridge the skills gap? That's one thing he's explained, and he talked about something that got my attention, which is the rules of engagement. We're not really so used to having people sign contracts and sign agreements. At least let's start with agreements, basic agreements, and then sign big contracts, and then have that agreement written down and saying that, see, if this goes like this, you're going to have to do this. This is what I'm expecting from you, and all of that. And so Charles is saying that we need to have that it's in having it that we can start seeing that there'll be the skill gap will start closing, because there could be a miscommunication. And then, Charles, while we wait for those calls now to come in, I also wanted to ask if in a situation where you are not, there was a deceit somewhere where someone was not very open about their capacity, and you've gone halfway for you to have realized that, what's the most appropriate way to approach, whether you're the client or the freelancer? Oh, you thought the job was, do this and get out, and then you get in, you've accepted the money usually like maybe so big, and then you realize that it's not It's not,
What
maybe
you
you as a
actually, yeah.
freelancer, you realize that it's more than you can do. Okay. And because of the money you keep, I mean, you stay at it. And then the client also has to realize what's the best approach to deal with something like that.
Okay, so maybe before I start, I'll say Choma introduced me as Charles, who's based in the UK. Come on, Charles came to do some things around the world, so I'm still much around. But I think the challenge is this: if I ask you, if you're being honest, most of the times you don't think of the consequence. You don't think of things going bad when you start most of these deals, and I can bet it that most of the times you don't have written rules of engagement because you always assume, because you've seen my flashy pictures, you've seen my videos that make you believe that I could deliver, right? And most of the times you don't think of things going bad, but the reality is that this is what it is. Things could go bad. So that conversation, if we are being on, if we have to look at every feedback we've had lately, or people complaining, or people not delivering, or people being below par, I think the new, like I said, being a student in this game is what makes you continuously come up with new lessons. The new lessons should be having rules of engagement and agreement. What happens if you don't do this? We should be able to have those conversations. It might not be what it used to be, but it's important because, for crying out loud, there's no ombudsman, there's no gatekeeper. It's hard for you to drag someone to the police station continuously for XYZ amount of money. So if you're able to trash the what ifs in the beginning, then this conversation becomes easier to navigate when things don't go right.
And
But
in the
because
case where
we've
it's not in place,
assumed,
in
yeah,
a case where that's not in place, that wasn't discussed, and then you're in the middle of a project.
if it wasn't discussed, it's going to be a hard conversation, but you still try. Since the easier way we find a way of the easier option for us is to make sure we drag each other on social media, and one of the parties, out of shame or what the next client would say, would finally bow. But we both know that, and we've had that. That's like the last thing to do. And you must give me my money, and I'll tell the world how poor, how bad you are. And it's always messy. But I'm looking for solutions. I'm like, before we go into any next contract, take time to find some people to write some things for you. What if? Ask the question because it's now your current. Yes, we've been in such situations where maybe client does not deliver, but nobody talks about the other part where it's the other way around. So if you find out that the client is not, that it's the other way around, and your client is not what they say they are, there might be reasons to address it, because there are two options you have: give me back my money, or what happens, or you report to the police and you go back and forth. But if these things were written at the beginning, the conversation would simply be less. But I think let's assume that I was meant to deliver something. What is normal is your client is not happy, and genuinely not happy, not being malicious, genuinely not happy. It's the onus is on you to look at the brief and do what they say you've asked for. Now, there's a difference when this is outside the scope. This is a scope creep, and the client wants more. But it's the more reason why. See, most of the people, most of the situations, I can bet it, most of the things are not written.
Yeah.
There is no identification of what. So most of the time it's written. There is no what we should do. What sometimes, if you're as straightforward as refund, and it's written and everybody signs, then the conversation becomes refund. But it's a lesson for us to put things down and hope for the best, but always know that sometimes the best don't happen. Yeah, maybe that might be able to do it to start about it.
Now, let's talk about the credibility of freelancers. How can they build credibility?
When you say credibility of who?
Freelancers, how can they build credibility? Because the truth is that more and more people are realizing that some people that say they do stuff actually do not have a portfolio. It's not that they do it, but this is something they would like to start doing. Or they are just at an entry level, because freelancing has a very low entry point. Okay, so let's talk about building credibility as a freelancer very quickly now.
So I don't clearly I don't think I have a problem with building credibility as a freelancer. I have a problem with you deciding that because most of the times, if we're being honest, you would have asked 5 people or 10 people. And if you made up your mind that the cheapest option was your best bet and you didn't do your due diligence, that's what normally the consequences is. Now let's be real. An average, we've come to see we're in an era where, like I said, the criteria for you choosing who does the work is flashy pictures and good videos. But we both know that that's like the least of the work.
Yeah.
Now, if I'm asking freelancers to be credible,
Charles, can you hold our thoughts? Let's take this call, and then we'll get back to it. Hello, good afternoon. Okay, I think I have a network problem. Okay, yes, 0817-923-0002. You can also call 0817-923-0009. The WhatsApp number 0809-030-6416. We're talking about the gig economy, as we call it, where people have taken up short-term works, and it seems not to have still bridged the skill gap, because we still find that people trying to get certain works done, whether it's personal projects or worked in the office, you're not able to get the right people to fill in those spaces. And we have a coach in the studio, and he's been talking to us about the experiences and the insights you're sharing. I'm quite shocked because I've never thought of it that way, but it's really helping to understand how to engage with, the freelancing world. All right, so let's take this call now. Hello, good afternoon. Welcome to Talking Figures.
Good afternoon.
Speak up, please.
So I'm calling in to contribute to the show.
Go ahead.
I think from my experience as a freelance copy, I've been working for quite some time before I took a hold. I think the basic problem is not incompetence. I find that most times is comprehension, a general understanding. There is always a communication gap between most clients and the freelancers per se. But from experience, I've had issues whereby once I'm able to maintain that communication, even when I'm not something to design the logo, the client even goes ahead to say, okay, look for someone that for me. I think most times, some of it they fail to be able to understand. They are always to just move on without fully and actually.
Okay. The network is not so great, and I wish it was good enough for me to hear you clearly. Please, if you can call back, that would be great, just so that we understand exactly what you're saying. But Charles probably didn't hear him, but he was saying
no, I didn't.
That he's a freelancer, he does copywriting, and he says that it's sometimes not incompetence. He says sometimes it's comprehension. And so he was going on to explain that, but the network didn't let me really pick what he was saying. But yes, the phone lines are still open, 0817-923-0007. You can also call 0817-923-0003. The WhatsApp number is still 0809-030-6416. That's 0809-030-6416. The question is about the gig economy and your experience trying to work with, whether it's freelancers or you are trying to get people to get a personal project sorted out. I had an experience in December. Charles, you're here, right? You're listening.
Yeah, I can hear you.
So I had an experience in December where by the second week, I gave this tailor my fabric, and the agreement was that he was going to return it before Christmas. And he begged me for this. It's not.
When you give a Nigerian tailor your clothes, don't tell me December.
He begged and said he was so sure he was going to deliver. I mean, there's that part of wanting to also give people a chance to actually build the portfolio, right? So they can say,
But
oh,
the
they've
tailors
done
are
this
not in
before, they've done this
conversation,
before.
Choma, tailors are not in this conversation. It will be unfair to the tailors.
They are cut different cloths now, right? Oh my goodness. Because that ended really badly. I kept saying, please return my fabric. I think it was in February that my fabric was finally returned. And I still do not know if that fabric is complete. And I just chose not to make a fuss about it. But I know that I'm not the only one that's had that experience. But I just had to come up with the one that I know that this just happened recently. This can happen to to someone. I mean, looking for editors are so scarce. Book editors, Charles, they're so scarce in Nigeria. Nobody wants to read again and correct
because
and
we have
restructure.
So the thing is this. Most times, I think I understand what your caller said about comprehension. If I understand a bit of it, most times, see, there's a business to the craft, and most times what an average client wants is who knows how to do the job. You see the business part? We think the business part of the work is what we finally miss. Why do you think, okay, there's so much of problem in the creative world, in quotes.
Yeah.
There's so much of everybody complaining in the creative world about somebody using them or not using them. Half of the problem is always the business part of the craft, is what is said, what is assumed, and the rules of engagement. Most of the times is not even who has the talent or who knows how to do it well. Well, yes, there are challenges. There are times when we have problems of those that know how to do it well. But most of the times, the business part is the rules of engagement. Is the things that we said we were going to do. Is what would happen if you don't deliver as not said. So most times, it's us doing the assumption. Like your tailor told you he will, and you didn't give any assumption. You believed he will, which is not bad. You trusted him. But that's not the reality. The business of the craft and the business of the work is different from having the talent.
Okay, Charles, we need to go, but let's just read this message from Eric Goba on WhatsApp. He says, hi, Choma. Are you talking about artisans? I noticed that in Port Harcourt, too many uncouth and non-performing artisans. I get the impression that they attach themselves to professionals and zoom off without acquiring the finesse or perfect finishings and go around collecting monies from people and do very unacceptable shoddy jobs. Time wouldn't permit me, Charles, for us to continue this conversation. I really have to go. We have a program coming up in less than 2 minutes. And but I just wanted you to give your final thoughts, both to freelancers and their clients alike.
So simple, apprentices should learn the work well. And people that are looking for people that should do their job should not give the apprentice, should go look at their masters. That's why their masters are different. Pay the masters well. Else, if you pay the apprentice that hasn't learned the job, the consequences, the joke is on you.
Okay.
And at the end of the day, there's so much, but I wish everyone the best when we make our decisions.
Okay. Thank you so much, Charles. Thank you for making time for this. I wish you all the best. And we're going to definitely have this conversation again because someone somewhere is about to get totally unsatisfied with the job that's just been delivered to them. And I wish you all the best as you handle that if that's happening to you right now. So thank you, Charles, for being on the show.
Thank you for having me, Choma.
Yes. All right. That's about it here on Talking Figures. Yes, Choma is my name. Choma is the one for we do Talking Figures every Wednesday, 2 p.m. So we'll do this again next week. Until then, please stay vigilant. Yes, we're going to have a program now. And at 3, the news will be here. Rivers today. After that, Hard Facts. Sam Chinidi will be here to lead you on that one. Stay tuned.
Oil and gas, forex, fiscal policy, business and the economy, it all comes down to